Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Bill McKeon. I'm the president and CEO of the Texas Medical Center, and I'm honored to have this evening Dr. Paul Klotman, he's got many titles. He's the CEO of Baylor College of Medicine. He's the dean of the medical school. Anything else?
President.
President. So he's got
Sciences University.
This is his business card. It's this long just to cover his titles. So Dr. Klotman doesn't know this, when most people refer to fireside chats, we've all been there before. They're kind of pat answers. People know that it's coming, and they ask questions like, Paul, tell me about the future of Baylor College of Medicine. That's not what we do here in Cocktails, Colleagues, and Conversation. What we do is we do deep research on our candidate, research that goes beyond his staff, family, FBI. We have access to FBI. We touch on to every aspect of your life because I find that one of the most interesting things about the brilliant people that I'm privileged to work with every day is often you don't know their backstories. You know their great academic stories. You know their great stories about their leadership and research. But we're going to take Dr. Klotman through this. So we participate. So take a look at this. Take a picture with your phone. Because throughout this time, we have a very active texting. So when you text, it comes into our team. Tatum leads our marketing department. She sends those over to my phone, and I will ask Dr. Klotman those questions. Okay? So this is a very handsome picture of you, by the way. How long ago was that taken?
I don't like it.
You don't like it?
It's not my, no, I don't like it.
Oh, okay. All right. Let's move on. All right. Here we go. First picture. Tell us what that picture is all about, Paul.
Is that the Terminal Tower of Cleveland?
That is your birthplace, Cleveland, Ohio.
Okay. When I was there was only one building. It was that little, the one in the middle, that's little pointy thing. That was called the Terminal Tower. And I thought it meant because everybody got terminally ill by floating around Lake Erie. So just so you know, when I was growing up in Cleveland, that was when the Cuyahoga River caught on fire 3 times. I used to take a boat in elementary school down the Cuyahoga River. It was a wooden boat, and all the effluent from the steel factories would pour into the Cuyahoga River. It was yellow, and the pH was like 4.2, so all the boats started dissolving. And when they actually stopped having boat rides for little kids because the boats actually were dissolving. So I used to go up to the top of the Terminal Tower, and you could see concentric yellow circles going into Lake Erie. And I was very excited as a kid. My parents would take me swimming in Lake Erie. We had to drive 60 miles outside of Cleveland to a place called Mentor Headlands, which was the first place that was deemed safe. And when I was a kid, I actually thought fish floated on their sides because that was all the fish that I was swimming around. That was my memory of Cleveland, yeah. So, but born and raised in Cleveland, that's true.
Well, we like to test people's knowledge, what you actually know about Cleveland, Ohio. So let's take the quiz together. Can you identify this? That's all right. Don't worry. We'll stump you on the first one. This was in 1879.
That looks like a steel factory on the right. What is the...
So in 1879, Cleveland, Ohio was the first city in the United States to have electricity.
Yeah.
Hence named the City of Lights. There's more coming. Okay. Who is Margaret Hamilton?
I have no fucking clue.
She's a product of most of our nightmares. Add into it the flying monkeys, and they freaked me out through my entire adolescence.
I know her.
Right?
She was my 3rd grade English teacher. She moved to New York. She's just a street person in Manhattan.
She's very famous. She's still in my mind and spirit.
No, she's scary. She's scary.
Okay. Which candy was founded in Ohio?
Mars.
Wrong, my friend. Oh. It was Lifesaver.
Yeah, you needed them in the Cuyahoga River. So,
yes, in 1912, this is a product of many of our childhood. In 1912, which superhero was developed in Ohio?
Oh, the inflammable hero, the one that spontaneously ignited.
Wrong again. Superman.
Oh,
Superman was actually
Man of
created
Steel, the
in
Man of Steel.
1930.
The Man of Steel.
The Man of Steel.
Yes,
Okay?
I should.
But there's more.
Wait.
And which term was coined in Ohio?
Term.
Term.
Which term?
It's one we all know.
Never go back. Come on, Lil.
Okay.
Wasn't that it? Never go back. That's.
All right.
I've lived that.
All right. I'm certain that the development group of Cleveland, Ohio will never call you again. It was actually rock and roll.
The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is there. That's
It
true.
became the birthplace of rock and roll, a DJ.
That's because you could get rocked and rolled downtown.
I wasn't aware of that. All right,
Yeah.
moving on. Tell us about this building.
That one, I know that one. Is that Western Reserve University?
That is your University of Michigan, where you spent your formative
Jesus
years
Christ.
of college.
That's,
You know, a lot of people don't go to campus. Those off-campus students
that's
are
the
always...
law quad. That's the law quad. I never went to the law quad.
Okay, so during that time, I know, what were the things that you remember most about your time at University of Michigan?
Bo Schembechler.
Bo Schembechler?
Yeah, he arrived when I arrived.
What about your studies yourself?
The smoke in.
What's the smoke in?
That was when marijuana was legalized. It's the famous, everyone went on the quad and had legal marijuana. There was the first place to have legalized marijuana. That was when I was a freshman, the Rainbow People's Party. And then, of course, the Natural Resources building where I did my entomology work. I was an entomologist.
Entomologist, let's come to that.
That's a cicada. I know that.
Okay,
That's
does
a
everyone know that's a cicada?
I know that.
Okay, there's cicadas and there's cicadas, right? I believe that you wrote a paper during the University of Michigan on cicadas. Is that not true?
That is 100% true.
I bet that was popular at parties.
My parties, it was.
I bet
They were all entomology majors. I was like a first published entomology student.
You were rocking it. It is the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So you spent a lot of time. So we're going to test you about your knowledge of cicadas.
I know everything there is to know.
You do?
I do.
Oh, okay. Well, let's see how he does.
You can't possibly.
Okay. How long is the cicada's lifespan?
1 year. No.
Oh, thank you. We got a right crowd to the answer from the crowd.
No.
There's a debate here.
No, there's no debate. When you say lifespan, it's okay. If you take the entire life of a cicada from the time it's an egg to it's variable. So
like a lifespan.
I was thinking like as an adult. As an adult, they only live one cycle. They come out and they die. All of the periodical cicadas are odd numbers. They're natural numbers. So there's 17, 13, and 11, and 7-year cicadas. There's the annual cicadas. They're 1 year. They come out every year.
Like we have now.
Yeah. So, but they all come out and emerge, and then they live just one breeding
What
cycle.
led you to writing a paper about this?
What I wrote about was their oxygen utilization during the time they were like underground.
Underground for 17 years.
17, 13, 11. Everyone was trying to figure out what it was that determined the periodicity. Why do they come out in 17 years, 13, 11? It's weird.
No. Well, there's more here coming. How many eyes does a cicada have?
Well, they only have 2.
Au contraire, my friend.
No, come on.
That's
You're gonna come
5 eyes.
They do not
Let's
have
go to the film. Let's go to the film.
Okay.
See? 2 big ones in orange and those little ones in the middle.
Those are light receptors. They're not eye. Okay. They're not an eye by my definition.
We're working that A paper down to a B minus
Jesus
already.
Christ.
Okay, next. What is the only eye color cicadas won't have?
Wait a minute. They come in red, black, green, white.
And green is the only one they won't have. We actually know so much about cicadas.
I don't know where you got your
hoping that we're
information, but I don't actually believe any of it.
I'm hoping we're done, but maybe not. Oh, how many different species?
Oh, no, that's I don't know. That's like hundreds. There's hundreds.
3,000.
Yeah.
And one last one. What are the special structure that makes male cicadas sing?
The timbal.
Very good. There we go. The timbal. There it is. Here's the timbal.
It's like a drum with a little, it's like your eardrum. And it has a little chitinous thing that's like a bone that pops in and out, just like a drum.
Okay.
That's why one cicada can be so loud. You know, you hear that bzzz, that's one cicada. So if you're in an emergence with like this year, 17 year, 11 year, it's like deafening. It's kind of cool. And they look different, by the way.
Last one.
Oh, okay.
What degrees of the soil temperature to reach for them to emerge, whether it's 17 or 19 years?
It is a constant temperature.
That was my heartbeat. I was trying to put a little pressure on you.
I don't know. I think it's something around like 34.
64 degrees.
Okay.
All right.
I didn't know.
All right. You know, this whole evening is going to be about cicadas. I hope you all are ready for this. Okay, tell us about this picture.
Is that Indiana University?
Yes, it is. It's where you got your medical degree.
That's.
Tell us about your time there.
Yeah, so is anybody from Indiana here? Good. So I went to the University of Michigan. My parents are academics, and so I was in Ohio in a boarding school. They moved to Michigan, so I was in state at the University of Michigan. I wanted to go to Michigan Medical School, and I got in. They moved to Indiana. Michigan declared me out of state. So my parents said to me, you can go to any medical school you want in Indiana. There's one. That's the one I went to. So I was not happy to go there, and it was the largest medical school in the country because they didn't do what Texas did. They have multiple medical schools. They have one medical school, so all the different regional campuses all roll up into one.
Okay.
So I went to the biggest, which made me feel really bad because that wasn't the best. It was just the biggest. And then the thing that really pissed me off is I don't know if you all think about this, but the better the institution, the smaller the degree. Indiana the medical school had like a 5 by 15 foot degree. And I went like, this isn't good. But anyway, I am the commencement speaker this year.
Oh, I was about to say, you're a trip for the alumni.
And it's actually a very good medical school. And they've done something that unfortunately Texas didn't do. So while I went there, they were not ahead of the curve. As soon as I left, they are ahead of the curve now. So good for them.
Wow. All right. Whew. Okay.
That's Duke.
That's Duke.
I was married in that thing, the Duke Chapel.
Right. So you arrived there.
There's my wife.
You don't look ahead.
Oh.
Don't look ahead. So
There's my wife. Yeah,
so you went to Duke, and you met
Mary.
this beautiful young woman. So these are early pictures, right? We did our research.
That was when she was an undergrad, and she was a very good tennis player. Now her sisters, you may not know this, her sisters were both All-American athletes at Indiana University.
Oh, I didn't know that.
No, and the weirdest thing is, so this is actually interesting. My mother was the first dean of women at Indiana, and when she got there, Indiana was sort of a misogynist place, and they had this big race for men that was called the Little 500. It was a bike race that has been in many movies, but the women they had on tricycles on a little like one time around. So my mother walks in there and goes like, that's no. So she changed all of the sort of way that Indiana University appreciates women athletes. And the first thing she did was she had all of the women who'd been varsity athletes, they never gave them letters. So she had them all come back to get letters.
Wow.
And unbeknownst to anyone, my two sisters-in-law, both Indiana varsity athletes, came back. And there's my little 5 foot, like my mother looked like Ruth Ginsburg, maybe a little shorter, but just as tough. And she was giving letters to my two sisters-in-law in basketball and golf.
Tell us about, you were chief resident at
Yeah,
Duke.
that was the first case of sexual harassment.
How did you?
There was like,
how
notice
did you
there's only
meet
a
Mary?
little smattering. Well, I was the chief resident. She was an intern, so that wasn't good. The only good thing was the chairman at the time was also dating a resident, so I had plenty of cover. But that was then, and now is now. But
I don't know if you remember telling me the story, but I asked you about how you met Mary, and there was a building of a softball team. Do you remember?
Okay, yeah, no, I know that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you remember the rest of that?
Yeah, I do. So I can't believe I told you that. I wish I hadn't. So my wife was interesting because she came to the medical school with a lot of fanfare. She was engaged to the basketball captain, who was like and Duke basketball is a big thing. So she's engaged to the basketball captain, and she dropped the engagement 1 week before the wedding and 2 weeks before she started her internship. So you can imagine at Duke University, there's no talk more than about her. So I'm going like, yeah, I want to meet her too. So, but it was very hard to meet people like, that are working for you. This is so bad. So this is so bad. So I arranged an event. Where like the house staff were going to play the faculty in a softball game, and and I thought, okay, this will be great. I'll get to meet her then. Look at my office. I'm never going to get over this. And of course, the only person who didn't sign up was her. So I made all this effort, and she didn't. Yeah. So.
Well, you navigated that because out of this entire class, within, I think, a year.
Within 8 months, we got married, yeah.
You were married.
Yeah.
So what was that like?
So she looked at this picture. This is a picture of us, obviously. And you can't see that, but I had a fro. I mean, I had really beautiful hair. And I had about a 4-inch fro. And she looked at that picture years later. She said, I'm taller than you. And so one thing she insisted, but at the time she would never marry a guy that was shorter than her. Well,
your fro wasn't seen.
My fro wasn't, yeah. I'm sorry.
So we're going to move fast because the journey that you two...
You didn't tell me this was how
I know, I told you that we have deep research.
Mm-hmm.
So talk about the journey. First step in your journey together, by the way. You're going to hear really an interesting thing about both Paul and Mary, about this first step of their journey, but keep going through it. So your first one is NIH.
Okay, so I was a young faculty member. I was an assistant professor. I had the arrogance to apply for a very large program project grant. For those of you who are out there, that's a big thing that you don't do as a junior investigator. And even the chair of medicine came to me and said, like, you're going to embarrass us. You can't be putting in a grant this big. You're just a junior investigator. It's never going to happen. You won't get funded and we'll look stupid. So don't do it. And I said, okay. And then I submitted the grant. And it got funded. So I had just gotten funded. They made me a tenured professor as an associate professor. And I was like, my life was good. I had a 5-year program project. It was like $6 or $7 million grant. I'm doing great. I just got tenure. And my wife, who was infectious disease faculty working on cytomegalovirus and was part of the grant, HIV was just sort of emerging, and she's reading a paper in Nature about, it was the cloning of HIV and the full-length sequencing of HIV. So she comes to me and says, I'm switching. I've been working on cytomegalovirus. I'm going to work on HIV, and I'm going to this lab. It's an NIH lab. I'm going to this lab. Now, we're married, and I said, well, honey, what about me? And she goes like, what about you? So I drove. I was really bad. I was hungover, but I drove her to meet Flossie Wongstall and Bob Gallo, and they loved her, and so they immediately offered her a position in their lab, and I was like depressed and miserable, and I thought, okay, well. I was sort of a chemist, biochemist, and molecular biology hadn't really taken over the field of nephrology, so I found a lab that was the best molecular biology lab at the NIH campus, and I went there and said, can I do a sabbatical with you? And luckily, they offered me a position. Exactly. That's the Greyhound
Yeah, we got an
talking.
intruder,
Yeah.
Lily.
Yeah, don't let, that was barking at your dog.
Keep an eye
So,
on you in the back
so
row.
that was, I ended up going to that on sabbatical, and then, as it turns out, I ended up getting a tenured position in NIH,
As you do.
as I do.
As you do. All right,
Anyway.
next step.
Yeah, so this is funny. So I was very happy. I had just gotten tenured in NIH, which for those, I don't know if many of you know the intramural program. It's very difficult. Somebody has to die before you can get a tenured intramural program. They have like 350 slots, and that's it. The government only supports 300. So luckily for me, someone died in our institute. And, everyone's like, it's pathetic. They're going like, poor Ken, he died. Yes, there's a lot of opportunity. And there were like, I don't know, 300 people, but the hard part if you're an intramural scientist is proving you're independent.
Right.
I had already been independently funded. I had a program project. So I was the one person who could show as an independent scientist, so they gave me the one slot. So I was funded. They're very happy. My cycling career was booming. My lab was cycling. We had a shower in the lab. I mean, I'd do some research. I'd go cycling, come shower, do some research, go home, drink heavily. It was like the best times of my life, especially the drinking heavily. But my wife was uncomfortable with the Gallo lab because it was, I don't know if anybody remembers, the band plays on and all the craziness in the Gallo lab and it was very controversial. She decided she wanted to leave. Again, I'm happy, content. So I kept getting these offers to be a division chief in my specialty, and I'd immediately throw them in a wastebasket. And either I would go to her lab or she would go to my lab, depending upon who was done first, and we only had one car, we'd drive home together. Mm-hmm. So I had thrown this one thing in the wastebasket, and she came over to my lab, and she pulls it out, and it's in New York City, and her family's in New York. And she goes like, oh, you have to look at this job. And I'm going like, why? I'm perfect. No, you have to look at this job. Next thing you know, we're in Manhattan. And I took the job as chief, yeah. And then she became an infectious disease chief there. Anyway,
The journey continues.
Yes.
You created two beautiful children. Let's talk about your first.
So Sam was adopted. Mary was an unfortunate. During her mother's pregnancy, they used to give DES for women who had RH incompatibility. Big Catholic family, 6 kids. She started having problems with RH incompatibility. So the last 2 kids had DES during their pregnancy. One was a boy, not a problem. With girls, it's a developmental problem. So they don't ever actually develop the normal fallopian tube. So little TMI, but that's what happened.
Yeah.
So she had an ectopic pregnancy and we had immediate fertility issues. And so we adopted our first kid through the Catholic Church. That's another long story, but we are officially recognized by the Catholic Church, and it was only $24,000 and 12 dispensations, but that's the result. We're very happy. And then Alex was the very first frozen embryo success at Duke. So if you go through the in vitro program at Duke, 001, that's us.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so
that's
and
really
he's
amazing.
like 33 years old now. Anyway.
Okay, so
That's Sam.
we talked about Sam, we talked about Alex. Let's talk about your first grandchild, JP.
Yeah, so in my world, I've been at various levels of success in my wife's eyes. When her father had an accident when we were training, and I sort of had to save his life in some weird way, but I did. I was number one. I mean, I was number one. Number one. And I was number one for a period of time until they discovered they had kidney cancer that was discovered by a follow-up x-ray. And then it was not that I saved him, it was that God saved him, because he had to have the accident to discover his kidney cancer. So I went from one, I dropped back down to 2 behind her brother. And then when we had our boys, the first one, Sam, of course, I dropped to 3.
Right.
and then when we actually dropped to 4. And now that we have JP, I'm not even on the map. And by the way, none of us are. So JP is the number one. You can see the look in her eyes. I mean, she's absolutely enamored. Yeah. She goes and sees him every day. Every day.
Wow. So the journey from New York took you in 2 different places.
Yeah.
Married to Duke, and you here at Baylor College of Medicine, which we're so grateful. I think it's been 14 years?
14 years.
14 years.
14 years.
Talk just for a minute about, because you get to brag on Mary, and if you don't, I will, but talk a little bit about just her success.
Yeah, so she's a terrific scientist. Yes. She's an HIV molecular virologist, but she is an amazing leader. And in medicine right now, if you look, no matter who you are in the United States of America or even internationally, go like, who's the most influential woman in science? It's Mary. She was recruited to be chair of medicine at Duke when we were both at New York. Then she was recruited to be dean, and then she's now the executive vice president for health there and the dean of the medical school. But she's been president of every major society in the country, AAP, Physician Scientists, National Academy. She's in the AAS. I mean, she has to turn down. She's like the speaker at every graduation, everywhere. She's really a remarkable leader. And what's amazing when she stands up in front of an audience, I mean, she is like spellbinding. People just admire her, but she's not funny, and you wouldn't want to go out to dinner with her. So people who know us both all say,
it's not true.
I want to be her, but I want to go out to dinner with you. So nobody wants to be me, but I'm a lot more fun.
That is.
She has a sense of humor, but she is not a funny person.
Okay.
But she does laugh at shit, so maybe
all right.
that's stuff.
I'm going to throw a number up at you and see if it resonates with you. 1,452. That is, our team has studied you, and through research, that's the number of flights that you and Mary have taken over 14 years. They fly every weekend except for 2. I removed the 2.
Yeah.
Except for 2. 1,452 flights.
So we decided, so people thought we were weird because our labs were together and our offices were together. So people would come and go like, how can you work all day and be together and have a family? It's like, is it too much? So people said, like, you're really weird, because we always had one car, labs together, offices together. Even Lori Tabak was our joint hire. Now that we do this, people go, you're so weird because you're commuting. But when we did this, we said we will never miss a weekend. So that was our commitment. And both institutions, I give our institutions a lot of credit. There's not an issue. We've been recruited to places where they said, like, well, what do you do on weekends? And you have to be there all the time.
Sure.
I give a lot of credit to Baylor and our team, and I give a lot of credit to Duke. They never question that. First and foremost, we spend weekends together.
Yeah. Well, I've seen the days that you're here, and you work around the clock. So
that's true.
I think if you look at hours, Baylor more than benefits, as I'm sure Duke does. So I'm going to take you to a different time, and this is going to be quick. Okay. But way back when in 2020, in February, as a matter of fact, was when the virus was still in Wuhan. We had this famous meeting, and brought all the CEOs together at the Texas Medical Center. I'm sure you've heard this before, but never had we faced a health crisis like this, certainly in our generation. And one thing that we realized really quickly is, one, all of our data was separate. At that time, it was not shared. We knew that we had to make policy decisions. I mean, just think about the simple thing like no visitors at Baylor College of Medicine, or MD Anderson, masks, traveling, not restricting our people from traveling. And it seemed like vaccines. It was outrageous in the first few days where people saying, well, you can't tell people not to travel. And this group came together and realized that if we did it individually, we would have failed. If we do it collectively, we could be hugely successful. I need to tell you about Dr. Klotman's role in this, because every morning at 7 a.m., we would pull together all of these people, and I can tell you, they never missed it. This is the one meeting you would never hear a CEO say, I'm going to send someone, I'm going to dial it in, I'm going to make it a little late, all of that.
7 days a week.
7 days a week for over a year and 3 months, not a meeting was missed. And I believe it was one of the greatest expressions of the Texas Medical Center, not that we just share proximity to one another, but the power of what we can do collectively together. And Dr. Klotman, on every meeting, was our expert on the virus. And if you don't remember back, I can share with you, like yesterday, when this virus was coming out of Europe, it was devastating places. They were learning about the viruses, the way we treated the viruses, the way we treated patients. Some of the viruses would attack the upper respiratory, some in the lower. And so things that you would do for the original virus would not work on the second. And Paul was really just kind of a guiding light of having his brilliant scientific mind. He knew every aspect of the virus, how it binds, how it affects you, what that meant for effect on us. And we made decisions every morning because of it. And I can tell you, if we didn't have Paul Klotman by our side, we would have been so worse off. And I know every one of those CEOs would say exactly what I'm saying. So a round of applause for Dr. Klotman.
Thank you.
So you remember these pictures and slides, and we did this every day, and the numbers are ridiculous. How many? It was 2,000 actually CEO hours. 2,000. We've never met on anything. But one of the great spin-outs of that became the following. I'm going to show you 30 seconds of this video. Stick with me.
I wanted to address the Baylor community. These are obviously incredibly extraordinary times, and I just wanted to put it in perspective. In my career, I've been through 3 hospital fires, 2 floods, 1 hurricane, 9/11, 2 global economic disasters, 2 institutional economic disasters, 3 flu pandemics, SARS and MERS, and now we have COVID-19 pandemic. This one, for whatever reason, feels a lot different and somehow worse. I think each of us is a little concerned personally about our own health, as well as our family and friends and our patients. And so this is a little bit more personal, I think, than many of the other sort of disasters that have befallen us.
So I'm going to skip forward on that. That was his first. He has now since delivered 232 videos every Friday.
They're a lot better now.
Yeah, they're a lot better now. He has a lot of followers. At one point, I think he had 60,000 followers. But you know what? His brilliance, his knowledge, he guided a lot of people, but none of that worked without Lily. Lily was the star of the entire show. Now, he has a Lily cam. It's low on the ground. And you see Lily's been when the Olympics arrived. So the real following is Dr. Klotman and Lily. And he's got a little bit of crazy things in his dog. So there's Lily, Luca, and Leo.
Yeah,
are they still all alive?
Yeah, they're all.
Okay,
yeah.
So he travels with Lily, but there's 2 others waiting for him. So I'm going to switch now to Baylor, because one of the things that's really exciting about Baylor, people may not know this. Baylor, typically on NIH, correct me if I'm wrong, receives about 53% of all the NIH grants in the entire Texas Medical Center. They don't realize the juggernaut that Baylor College of Medicine is. Here's just a picture of the last 12 months. So talk to us a little bit about what's happening, because it seems like you're on fire.
Well, the most recent one was we got our CTSA, which is the Clinical Translational Science Award. That's difficult these days because you have to actually displace an institution, and it turns out we displaced one institution that was 1 point behind us. You know which one it was?
Broad?
Duke.
Ouch. Did you call Mary?
Yeah, we don't talk about it at home.
Ouch.
Yeah, but you know, our comprehensive cancer center is unbelievable. Our genetics department has always been number one. In molecular cell biology, we're number 1 or 2 in the nation. You know, in all the cutting edge science, our neuroscience is unparalleled. We have 2 Hughes investigators with Huda and Hugo. So, I mean, what's fun about being a leader at Baylor is you walk around the place. And, you know, it's very informal, and you run into National Academy of Science people, you know, Howard Hughes investigators, and everyone's very collaborative and collegial, and it really is just a remarkable scientific community. So I'm always honored just to be there.
Yeah, as you should be. So I'm going to show a picture about, I was invited by Paul, and Mary was in town, so I was invited by both of them to their house because I heard Paul was a really great cook. Now, I'm kind of a peanut butter and jelly guy, as my wife will attest. I have the most unsophisticated palate. But, so I go over and I'm hearing Paul's a really great cook. And then I didn't realize, and this shows you how unsophisticated I was. I saw Paul boiling bags of meat in the kitchen. And I thought, you know, they're very busy, power couple, don't have a lot of time. I'm gonna throw the meat in and boil it, and then we'll serve it right up. I didn't know the term sous vide at the time. So it shows you where I am. So tell us a little bit about.
Okay, so when I first arrived here, and for the first until COVID, I mean, I was out, and Julie knows, 4 out of 5 nights. I'm always out to dinner. I never, you know, cooked at home, and I used to take pictures of my empty refrigerator as like a, you know, a great statement of how hard I worked. And then COVID hit, so I got nowhere to go. So my wife, because she's very Machiavellian, this is all her. She got me these master classes, which mostly they're online, but there's some in person. And so I mean, for the first 2 years of COVID, all I did was do master classes for cooking, and I did all of Thomas Keller, the French Laundry chef, probably #1 chef in the United States, all of his repertoire several times over. And then Mario Mucci, which is a big Italian, and then so all I do is like cook all the time. So during the week, it's like a test kitchen, so that when I'm with my wife, I can perform. And so now all I do is cook. So when we have people over, let's say 70% of the time, I do the cooking.
Yes.
And in Durham, I do all the cooking. And I realized it was her plan, because she did all the cooking for most of our marriage. We've been married for 43 years. 30, she did all the cooking. She was sick of that, so she dumped this on me, and now I do it. It's like a hobby. So, but I was in the Houston Chronicle.
I know you were. I know you were. So there's a famous for your quote about wine pairing.
Oh, what did I say? Good wine pouring is important.
No.
Oh yeah,
It's important. I think it's important to your food.
So I started drinking wine when I was 30, when I was single, and I thought I needed something that made me look more attractive.
Right.
Because I wasn't.
There's no reason.
Well, I thought I needed something.
I think you're quite handsome.
Thank you very much. You're very handsome yourself. But this was my thing. So I started. Oh, God bless you.
So enough chat. We're doing the wine challenge. So since we're going to test your ability to know wines. Now, Philippe, are these in order? So there's 4 wines here, and so I guess we're going to reach to the back. Move them around.
This is a Pinot Noir right here. Well, what
You're supposed to start from the back.
Okay.
Okay, ready? So,
Philippe, what do you got here?
number 1. See, there's a 1 on there, followed by numbers, please. Okay.
Oh, no, 1 is here.
Number 1. So take your number 1, test it. Okay. Expert, what is that?
What do you mean, what is it?
Wait, just tell us what the wine is. You're an expert. French Laundry, blah, blah, blah. You know, so pairing.
It's red.
They're all reds. I tried to keep it easy for them. And I don't know wines well.
Is this some Malbec you dumped on me?
Is that your guess, sir?
It's definitely not a cab.
There's only so much time we have here tonight.
What is it?
It's not a cab.
It's not a cab.
No.
So I'd say it's
Survey says we're going to come up. Oh, by the way, make your messages through. I'm about to take Q&A. We're starting our Q&A while we do the wine challenge. Isn't that going to be fun?
I think it's a Malbec. That's what I would get.
Malbec, I think it's a Pinot Noir.
No, it's not a Pinot Noir.
It's not? Let's see what it
Bad
is.
Pinot Noir. Oh, good for you. Good for you.
Ooh.
Good for you. It's a bad Pinot Noir.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, hold on. Now, my questions are
one,
coming in.
You're only going to guess Pinot or Cab, so what do you
No, there's more. There's 4 more. So you stay with your white, and then we'll move to that
Okay.
in our second stage of questions. So I hope you're firing your questions in because we don't filter. Let's see. Here we go. Questions. Have you ever eaten a cicada?
No.
No.
Grasshoppers are more edible. Crickets, people don't eat cicadas. They're too thick. You'd have to crisp me. They don't crisp up.
Okay. What has been your largest, your biggest accomplishment or failure?
Biggest accomplishment or failure? Jeez.
Let's just go with accomplishment. I don't know who that
Baylor
downer
College
is.
of Medicine is my biggest accomplishment, no question.
Which is?
Baylor.
Wow.
I mean, when I started off, you have where we are now, 100%.
I thought it was marrying Mary, but no, let's just go. What does a typical week look like for you?
I have to ask Julie. I don't know my week until I look at my calendar.
Hey, no, it's really true. I don't call you. I call Julie, and she
No,
tells me.
I don't know what my week is. My typical week is whatever she tells me to do. I mean, early on, I turned my calendar over for the first 2 years, I tried to keep my calendar. It was a disaster, so
Right.
I no longer do it. My week is whatever she tells me to do.
Okay.
Increasingly, it's travel, but it used to be mostly just
Sure.
shit show after, one thing after another.
Note to self, shit show. Research on long-term medical issues for people like arthritis. What are your thoughts on that? Is there hope?
Actually, there's a huge, dramatic improvements right now. There's some really good evidence that CAR T cells that are normally used for cancer are probably the solution for autoimmunity. And so there's a huge number of clinical trials right now that CAR T cells may cure a lot of the autoimmune diseases like lupus.
Yes.
Just a recent paper, dramatic improvements on autoimmunity. So I think there's going to be some big changes with CAR T cell therapy for autoimmunity.
Wow.
So big opportunities there.
What is your favorite restaurant in Houston?
DeMarco.
Still.
Yeah.
It's pretty rock solid. DeMarco. Show of hands who've been to DeMarco.
Yeah. And the single best dish is their truffle tagliatelle, but you can't afford it. It's the white truffle that they double the price isn't worth it, but the black truffle, if you split it with people, it's the single best dish on earth. And I've tried that everywhere in the world, and it's never as good as DeMarco.
Okay. What are your hobbies outside of cooking?
Well, they've changed a lot. So I used to be a big time tennis player. I played tennis at Michigan. And
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Did you get a letter? Did you get a letter?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
And I was a competitive cyclist until I had kids, and my wife said, you can't be on a bike anymore. So now it's like leftover things, like we play pickleball together, which is lame. But, if you're a tennis player, it's pretty easy. And we walk a lot. And golf we've tried, but I know you're a big golf player, but,
We should play
there's
together.
too much of a bro culture in golf. I can't.
Photography?
Oh, photography. You're right. Photography is my number one hobby.
Really?
Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. We're making him more interesting by the minute.
Julie does everything she can to make me interesting. It's very hard.
So
These are
when you
calling
came
questions?
to, pardon me?
These are people
Oh,
asking.
I'm sorry, number 2. I'm sorry, or glass number 2, please.
Cab.
See if you can follow.
Yeah.
Taste. Ooh,
Cab.
ooh.
Jordan
Confusing.
Cab.
That's what?
Jordan Cab, not Jordan Cab.
Cab?
You
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Really? You think it's a Shiraz?
Well, I think it's a, I don't know. I'm not sure. It's a blend.
Okay, so that's 80% cab. It's good.
Okay. Does that count?
Oh yeah, fuck yeah.
No.
No. I mean, you can't say. By the way, every Cabernet in California is a blend. There's no 100% cab.
Well, that's a good point. So you're arguing to get a plus
No,
there?
no,
You're
it's-
down 1, and there's only 2 to go.
Well, you didn't
so
even,
you're
you
looking
didn't
for
even
the
guess
tie?
the second one. Come on.
Right. So you want to go to 3 just to move it along? Oh. Ooh.
I think it's Syrah. Either that or it's a high cab.
It's
High
heavy.
percentage.
It's heavy.
Yeah, it's either Syrah or cab.
I think it's a Barolo.
No, wait. So, okay. Well, look, you're setting this up.
I am not. I am
so-
not. I am blinded by the lights. Revved up.
Then you've had bad training because Barolos aren't that deep red. Are you sure that's a Barolo? Who said it?
We'll ask Philippe to verify, but anyway.
I mean,
okay, let's take some more questions. It's hard to lose.
I'm good at losing.
Okay. How long do you think you will continue in your role at Baylor?
I'm not allowed to say that.
If you were talking to a friend and they asked you about how long you want to stay in Houston, what might you share with them?
Forever.
Forever. Well, we would love that.
Yeah, I can't.
How long will you continue to do your videos?
So I wanted to quit 2 years ago, and I said something like I'm going to stop, and then I got like a lot of people write in. So I think I'm stuck.
Yeah.
So unless the viewership drops to like below like a few thousand, right now I'm down probably down to 5,000-6,000 people.
Right.
It's still a lot of people.
It's a lot of people.
So
and a lot of times when Polly and I are at home and we're talking about like, well, how bad are things now if this new virus is coming on? We go and watch your video.
No, I know. So I
every
think
Friday.
I'm stuck.
You have
I
to
think I'm
watch it.
stuck. I think I'm stuck.
What is your link? What do the people look for? Is it just Paul
If you go to
Klotman?
Klotman on YouTube,
Okay.
it pops up. For a while, they were getting money. You know, there was the 5-second advertisement. They hit 20,000 viewers. They put in ads. But we don't get any money for that. They just put in ads. And I'd click on it and be like 5-second ad.
Right.
I didn't tell them they could do that, but they did it.
What food or cuisine is your favorite to cook?
To cook French,
French.
yeah, 100%. To eat, maybe Italian.
Give us the layout if you would ever invite us back to your house. Lay
after this, I
out
may not.
one menu of your best.
Well, I do
French.
the best fish. I'm really good at fish. So a bronzino or a Dover sole and wilted spinach. I do fish better than anybody. I do fish well.
So there's,
Bronzino.
describe I know the fish. What else do we get with that? Is there a salad or appetizer? I don't eat fish, so I was looking for a strong appetizer.
I get you a hunk of meat. I get you a T-bone steak. I mean, anybody can do meat. So, I mean, it's hard to do fish, so I do fish.
All right. I'm assuming you're Global Services. What's your favorite airline?
United. Not because it's my favorite, but I have to.
Right.
Yeah. So, when I first came here, when it was Continental, they had a group that was called the CEO Circle.
Right.
And as long as you were a CEO, you got that. And it was great because Continental was really great. And our chairman of our board was the CEO.
They still talk about it here. It's like
great.
a major death
And then
in the city.
they get with United, and United's like just a mess. Now it's actually getting better now. So they got rid of the CEO Circle, and then they created these tiers. And about 4 years in, they created Global Services. So Global Services is not a mileage level. It's a je ne sais quoi, it's a mileage and whatever. But I've been in, Lily's in Global Service. She got in Global Services before I did. So
She doesn't get a seat, right? She's underneath you.
I pay for her.
You pay for a seat for her?
So yeah, everybody says get her like a, like a support dog, service dog. So I said to Lily, I'm going to get you a service dog. She goes, not on your life.
I'm out.
I'm no service dog. So I have to pay. I don't pay a full seat, but it's like $150 each way.
Really? $300 times? Someone get out their
No,
calculators.
$1,400. No, then, most of my salary goes into her airfare. But if I did service dog for her, can
Right.
you imagine Lily with a service dog thing on her side? No, that couldn't work.
All right, now we're going to go to live questions from the audience. My dog is single.
She's not capable
Lily's
of having
single.
children, but she's a very good companion. if you want grandchildren, it ain't gonna work.
Any other questions? Yes, please.
What's your opinion on GLP-1?
Oh, really? A really great question on The question is about GLP-1.
First, tell people what GLP-1 is.
So GLP-1 is the sort of the recent like Ozempic and all the drugs that it's a hormone axis that delays gastric emptying, so people feel full, and there's also probably neurologic receptors that make you feel less hungry. So when you think about the fact that obesity was probably the #1 problem in the United States, I don't think there's any question that the largest market for any drug will be the GLP-1 agonists, and every major company is developing them. So the ones like right now, they're subcutaneous injections. There's some oral ones, but right now every single company is developing oral GLP-1 agonists. The interesting thing is that there's been a couple of papers recently that shows that you can delay cardiovascular complications. And the most interesting one as a nephrologist, but because there's no really good drug for it, is it delays renal impairment, that there's probably additional effects of GLP-1 agonists that are independent of weight loss. So it's going to be not $1 billion, but $1 trillion industry. It may advance lifespan by another 10 years if we sort of, in the same way that statins did. It's just a life-changing thing. There have been a bunch of studies looking to see if there are problems with it, but there's been very little in terms of complications. And I think eventually we'll probably all be on a statin and a GLP agonist, and that's probably really good for humanity. I think it's going to be a really good drug. When you think about adults, if you look about evolution, none of the things that like if you're beyond the age of reproduction, there is no selective advantage. I mean, every single thing that gets you to the age of procreation, that's what kind of evolution's all about. All of aging is getting rid of those things that made you live as a young, productive adult. So we, like things like clotting, which is very important in evolution, it's really bad if you're an adult, right? It's what heart disease. Very good if you're a 23-year-old male fighting to bring, food to your table and your arm is cut off by a lion or something, that's really good, but it's very bad for a 65-year-old male whose platelets are clotting in their coronary. So a lot of adult medicine is like overcoming the evolutionary advantage that you had until you were 23 years old. And GLP agonists, I think, are like one of those. I think statins are like those. The other thing about the GLP agonists are that they probably have anti-inflammatory effects. And so a lot of those, it seems like chronic inflammation is really bad for adults, no matter what it is. So I mean, it's probably the biggest advance in drugs as a class since statins. Yes. Yeah, sure.
How long do you think it will be until they can be prescribed for something other than diabetes?
There are already phase 3 trials looking at progressive renal disease, cardiovascular risk. I think within 1 year, it'll be it'll be a different label and different indications. And I think the only question is, can they manufacture enough where the price comes down? It's ridiculously expensive, like $800 like a month. There's no question when you get it to be oral and available, and the advances in medicinal chemistry, I think it'll come down to where it's very reasonable. When it's a reasonable price, I think everyone will be on it. And everybody you knew who was like fat, you see them now, so you're like, oh, you can tell you're on a GLP-1 agonist. You know, the biggest problem is muscle loss.
Yeah.
And so that's going to be the one thing is, you know, can you figure out a way to segregate, weight loss from muscle loss? And that'll be iterations of the drug over time.
I was with the leadership of research at Novo Nordisk in Copenhagen last week, and we talked about the many indications, and one of the new ones that they find is the effect on alcoholics and their desire for alcohol. So, sorry. But I mean, it was pretty fascinating, and I agree with you. I think it's one of those blockbusters.
It's going to be, trillion-dollar
Game-changing.
industry. Trillion-dollar
Yeah.
industry.
All right, you get your last chance
Okay.
to maybe win one and tie.
Oh, wait a minute. I think I got the second, the third. Okay, but Barolo I didn't get.
You didn't get the Barolo.
But I think
you
this
didn't
is
get
a
the
terrible
first one
Barolo.
either.
This is a terrible Barolo. I don't know who picked the drugs. Who picked the wine.
All right, try that. One or two last questions, and then we're going to wrap it up. Way in the back.
Yeah.
Stand, identify, and sing your school fight song. That's the ticket.
Hello, Dr. Klotman. It's Anjo with the events team. I work for Baylor. I have a question for you. So coming from the advancement office, I'm curious if a donor was to come to you tomorrow and say that they have $5 million to give to Baylor, what would be your wish list for that money? Where do you think would be the best, how would it be best allocated based on need?
Very good question. If you look at, I sort of look at human beings over time, and it's really fascinating. One of the things I'm absolutely fascinated by is for thousands of years, the human lifespan was 27 years. Thousands. I mean, from recorded time, 4,000 years ago to 1850. And in 1850, from then on, we've gained lifespan 3 years a decade. And so what happened? So what happened was the integration of science into medicine. And it was initially the discovery of bacteria and pathogens, later public health, separating wastewater from drinking water, vaccine development, then, the advances in cardiovascular disease, the advances in cancer, T-cell, CAR T-cell and the like. So for the first time, we're sort of plateaued in 150 years almost. So like, what is the next problem? Well, right now, dementia, neurodegeneration and all was never a problem because we all died before that happened. So if you look at the next advance in human lifespan is trying to prevent the neurologic degeneration that happens in so many people. So in my view, that's kind of the big challenge to advance lifespan for humans over time. A lot of people are into like longevity, like can I lift weights, run around? It's going to be things like preventing dementia, Alzheimer's. And if you're like, what institution is better positioned to do that? Nobody better than us. So we have the single greatest group in understanding the genetics of neurologic disease, the mechanism that it causes neurodegeneration, the pathogenesis of it. And so, and right now there's not a single drug on the market that's really been effective in neurodegeneration. So we don't have the answer yet. So right now the investments have to be in what's the mechanism. There's no institution better than ours that can address what's the mechanism for neurodegeneration that is going to be the next barrier for longevity in humans. So that is why we're different from everybody else.
Last guess.
That's a cab.
Cabernet is right. I think you tied the score. Oh,
I know that was a cab. 100%.
Yeah,
But by the way, this was number two was a cab too. It was just a blend, but it was a cab.
Okay, all right.
80%. Anyway,
Sore loser.
that's
sore
3 out of
loser.
4.
Paul, I want to tell you, I know it's been 14 years and I've been here 11 years, and you've been a real blessing to not only just Baylor College of Medicine, but to the entire community here. That
you.
you've really, you embody a lot of the things that we hope for, is just really pressing the next frontier of research. And it means so much. Often you hear about clinical, but you don't realize that this is a juggernaut for research, that actually Baylor Genetics, in most of the research that happens in the country around genetics, all of the analysis is done here on campus. It is, you hear about the Broad Institute. This is our Broad Institute, and it's arguably one of the top 2 or 3 genomics
Can I say
institutes.
2 things before you?
Please, sure.
So the first thing is the one thing that came out of the pandemic was the use of wastewater, 100% us. We pioneered that, we did that. The CDC is using our techniques. TEFI, we do all the sequencing. The future of all viral and infectious diseases, understanding and predicting, is going to be Baylor College of Medicine and what we've done here with the city of Houston and the state of Texas. The second thing I want to say is, and I don't mean to do this, but I'm going to do it anyway. The TMC for years was an institution that was infrastructure, and I think COVID showed for the first time the importance of an aggregating, convening organization that could bring all the institutions together. And your team, Isaac and McKinsey, everybody there, it's really amazing, was transformative, and the city of Houston did better than every other major city, New York, LA, Chicago, in the COVID pandemic. And why? The reason was we had predictive analytics that your team and Isaac and all brought together. So for the first time in the history of the Texas Medical Center since 1947, there is a reason that is beyond what it was, that for the TMC, the importance of the TMC, and your team defined that. And that's why we honored you at our graduation. But I really think it's really important for everyone to understand the importance that the TMC now serves as an aggregator, convener of all the best minds in the medical center. And it would never happen without your team. So
Wow,
I'm
thank
grateful
you
to
very
you.
much. Without special thanks to Dr. Klotman for all that you've done. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you all for coming.